Today, we'll delve into the story that took place in Oklahoma. On August 8, 2012, the sheriff of Garvin County received a call from the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation. The latter said they were contacted by a resident named Van Emblem, who reported seeing something horrific. As he believed, he witnessed the disposal of the body and an attempt to hide all the evidence. Emblem said that the night before the call, his friend, on whose ranch he has been working for 4 years, asked him for help. When he arrived at the ranch, a friend admitted he needed help to get rid of the body. At first, Van thought it was a joke. However, when he saw the plastic buckets with red stains, he realized it wasn't a joke at all. Since the buckets were heavy, his friend needed help loading them into a pickup truck. Before realizing he could become an accomplice to the crime, Van helped his friend. Coming to his senses, he left, telling his friend to deal with all this alone. Over the next few hours, Van contacted a lawyer who convinced him the only way out of this situation would be to call the police. After all, if it became known later that he knew about the crime but did not report it to the authorities, he would be prosecuted as an accomplice. Brandon Duran was born in 1980 in San Diego, California. Brandon's father was an ardent motorcyclist and a former member of the Bandidos Motorcycle Club, which the FBI considers a criminal organization, the second largest in the world after the Hells Angels. His parents divorced when he was around 10 years old. However, they maintained good relations, equally partaking in their son's upbringing. His father's love of motorcycles gradually passed to Brandon. At 25, he had his own motorcycle, which he assembled by hand and treasured dearly. He often spent time with other bikers, but did not belong to any motorcycle club. The unexpected death of Brandon's father on April 2005 was very challenging for him. Trying to beat the growing depression, Brandon decided to change something in his life. He sat on a motorcycle and drove to Las Vegas. Living in Vegas for about a year, Brandon met 24-year-old Amber Andrews, whose company made him forget all the problems. A whirlwind romance between them resulted in marriage 2 months after they met. By this time, Amber was pregnant. In December 2006, she gave birth to Brandon's son, Brando. The birth of a child was a crucial change in Brandon's life. He became a caring father and husband who worked at a high-paying job and chose family over his interests. However, one couldn't say the same about Amber. As if not noticing the birth of a child, she remained loyal to her lifestyle, constantly hanging out at biker gatherings and various parties. Thus, relations in the young family started deteriorating rapidly. Sometimes it even came to fights. Undoubtedly, the only outcome of this was a divorce, filed 4 years after the wedding. Brandon received full custody of the child. After all, unlike Amber, he could provide for both himself and his son. After the divorce finalization in 2010, Amber returned to her hometown of Meeker in Oklahoma, and Brandon went home to San Diego with his son. He was happy to be reunited with his family, who later helped him raise a child. Gradually, the emotional wounds from a failed marriage began to heal, and Brandon was again optimistic about the future. However, while thinking about the future, the past knocked on his door. In the summer of 2012, he saw Amber on his doorstep. His ex-wife wanted to reunite, asking him to give their relationship another chance. The feelings that Brandon tried to suppress so diligently resurfaced. He believed in the sincerity of his ex-wife and agreed to a fresh start. In September, their son Brando was supposed to go to kindergarten, and Amber asked the three of them to go to Oklahoma to visit her parents, who wanted to see their grandson. Brandon agreed, and they started preparing for the trip, planning to stay in Oklahoma for about a week. A few days before Brandon, Amber, and their sons returned to San Diego, Van Emblem contacted the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation. Van reported that his friend and employer asked for help to get rid of the body, saying that it was the body of Brandon Duran. The person who asked for Van's help was 30-year-old Justin Hammer from Garvin County. After receiving a call from the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation about the possible crime, the local sheriff and his assistant immediately went to the ranch owned by Hammer. Moreover, after calling Brandon's relatives from San Diego, the authorities found out Brandon was out of reach for several days. Until confirming the information provided by Van, they decided not to disclose the details of this case to Brandon's family. To the surprise of detectives, during questioning, Justin quickly confessed to murdering Brandon Duran. However, there was one crucial moment. Hammer said he acted in self-defense and described Duran as a dangerous motorcycle gang member who threatened him. According to him, on August 7th, Brandon drove up to his house on a motorcycle, kicked out the door with his foot, went inside, and started threatening him. Hammer claimed to have an intimate connection with Amber, which became the reason for Brandon's unexpected visit. As Hammer reported, Brandon threatened him, saying he must disappear from Amber's life, promising he'd ask his biker friends to help him disappear forever, and mentioning his relatives would also perish if he disobeyed. Allegedly, Hammer grabbed a shotgun standing in the corner of the room and fired it after these words. Realizing that Brandon was dead, he got afraid of retribution from the Bandidos Motorcycle Club and therefore did not call the police, deciding to hide all the evidence instead. Justin moved the body to the bathroom where he disposed of it using a saw, 5 buckets, and cement. According to Hammer's statement, he couldn't load the buckets into the pickup truck on his own due to their weight added by cement. Hence, he asked for assistance from his friend Van, who helped him load buckets into a pickup truck, but then left and turned him over to the police. Hammer's ranch had a small pond into which he threw the buckets. After dealing with the body, he began cleaning the house. He later burned the supplies, gloves, and rags he used for cleaning. As Hammer claimed, he gave Brandon's motorcycle to his relative. At the same time, Hammer stressed that his relative didn't know about the bike's origin and disassembled it for spare parts. After all 5 buckets were lifted from the bottom of the pond, the officers went to Meeker to tell Amber the sad news. The woman was in shock after learning about the death of her child's father. She said they divorced, but planned to start living together again. Amber also mentioned she fought with Brandon the day before because he found out about her relationship with Justin Hammer. After the argument, Brandon got on a motorcycle and left, saying he would deal with her lover himself, and one would say that such a version of events seemed believable. However, soon there was a new development in the case. Criminologists that worked in Hammer's house started discovering new evidence that cast doubt on his testimony. Justin said Brandon kicked the door down and entered the house, while in fact, someone kicked the door from the inside. The shoe print left on the door matched the footprint of Hammer's sneakers, which indicated Justin was the one who knocked down the door. In addition to the pistol and shotgun, they found a list of items needed to dispose of the body in the gun safe. It could indicate that the crime was not spontaneous, and Hammer was preparing for it in advance. Apart from the 5 buckets, they removed a doghouse from the pond. Filled with cement, it contained fragments that did not fit into buckets. Based on this evidence, Justin Hammer was charged with first-degree murder. The forensic medical expert had a difficult job: to analyze 25 separate fragments of Duran's body. An autopsy showed that Brandon was shot 4 times in the head, 3 times with a pistol and once with a shotgun. Moreover, according to the expert, the shotgun shot was the last one. By this time, Brandon was presumably dead and lying on the floor. However, it contradicted the testimony of Hammer, who stated he fired only once and from a shotgun. But it didn't make any sense to the investigators. The question arose, why did Hammer need to use a shotgun after firing a pistol 3 times? Especially since Brandon was already dead. This evidence suggested that someone else besides Hammer could be involved in the crime. The investigators' call to Brandon's mother, Cindy, about her son's death left the woman dumbstruck. After coming to her senses, Cindy clarified that Brandon had never been a member of the Bandidos Motorcycle Club. As she said, Brandon's father passed on his love for motorcycles to his son, but it never turned into something more. But there was another curious moment in Cindy's story. She said Brandon's bike was broken when he left for Oklahoma. He loaded it into the back of his pickup truck, hoping to fix it in Oklahoma. Moreover, Cindy said her son didn't like conflict situations, mentioning that his ex-wife Amber was a source of all his problems. Her unfaithfulness overshadowed their relationship from the very beginning. After all, even after the birth of her son, Amber stayed loyal to her lifestyle. and when Brandon would express his disapproval of her behavior, she would start a fistfight. All this eventually led to a divorce that resulted in Brandon receiving full custody of their son, which made Amber furious. Next, she disappeared for more than a year, uninterested in her son's life. Hence, when she suddenly appeared and asked for a second chance, Brandon and the rest of his family were astonished. After learning all this information, including that Justin Hammer and Amber were lovers, the investigators decided to study Brandon's ex-wife more closely. Amber told police that Brandon left on a motorcycle after the argument. However, his family claimed it was broken. The question arose, if the breakage was not severe, why would Brandon take the motorcycle to Oklahoma instead of fixing it at home? And as for Amber, she never mentioned that